On this episode of the Black Boss Ladies platform, we provide a brave space because there really aren't that many safe spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't, like, you literally become to a point where you like, I can't be anybody else but who I am.
You have to be willing to challenge those things that tell you that to play small in rooms that don't have the capacity to hold you.
Welcome to the Black Boss Ladies platform, the place where legacies live.
Welcome to the Black Boss Ladies platform podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Lee, and this is my co-host,
Julia Myers. And today we are interviewing the amazing Erica LaShawn. She has a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. She also has her own practice called Raw Form Wellness. Is that correct?
In Raw Form.
And she is amazing inspiration on TikTok, bringing life to what can sometimes be a dark space. So I enjoy getting to know you on TikTok. So we're happy that you decided to stop by and talk to us on the Black Boss Lady platform.
Yes, thank you. And so we're going to start today. Just what is your definition of success?
Oof, that's a really good question. I think it's so convoluted because we're such multifaceted people, and we're ever evolving, and so that definition changes, throughout their journey. I would say my definition of success includes personal growth. It includes impact. That's how I gauge. And then just how aligned I am with myself and my purpose.
Okay.
I
think that's how I define it. So it's not solely on financial stability and professional accolades and all those things that come and go. I think it is how close I am to self-actualization.
So it's great that you said that, because this show was founded basically to help other Black women to find their purpose. So what would you say is your purpose?
That's a good question. That's what we're going to do today, y'all.
Okay, we got to jump in there.
Okay. So I believe that my purpose is closely, because I'm a woman of faith, and so I do believe that, God blesses us with gifts, and He blesses us with those gifts so that they can make room for us. And so the route to finding your purpose is identifying what is that thing that makes you who you are. And so throughout my journey, there's just these patterns, right, that I've shown up in all spaces that are like, that's Erica. That's who she is. And that is the ability to create a safe space and for people. My whole life, even as a little girl, that has been my thing.
I've been feeling very calm right now as you talk. I'm like, you have a voice. Like I want to meditate.
That's medicine.
So you're creating a safe space just with the energy that you brought into this room.
Yeah.
It's very calming.
And I've heard that my whole life.
Yeah, and your voice is like lullaby.
Yeah. Like she about
Praise
to sing
God.
to me.
Praise God. Well, so that is, I do believe that is, my purpose. And so I always knew that I would be serving in that capacity, people.
And once you really start living in this life, you realize that safe spaces are a luxury because they're not always safe. They're not, some people go through their whole day and they don't feel safe at home.
Yeah.
They go into the workplace, they don't feel safe. They don't feel safe in their families. So being able to have a space where you can actually feel safe is a luxury. That's often overlooked.
It's a blessing. I think oftentimes so we're real cognizant of our spaces external to us, right? What's happening around us. My journey has brought me to a place of finding safety within me. And I think I just identified that because life has not always been, calm, right? My life has been pretty trying. And so what I've learned is to weather the storm, not to be moved by what's happening external to me, but to find, internal peace.
So you can sit it within the storm.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting that you say that because I was thinking when you said the safe space organization that I do volunteer work with is a group called Intisaki, and it's women who walk with lions and carry their own things. But what they say is that we provide a brave space because there really aren't that many safe spaces.
Yeah.
Mm.
So if you can sit in that brave space, and that's what you're saying basically,
Yeah.
you had to try to create this safe space because it wasn't a lot of safe spaces around.
I haven't heard that, but brave, that's an interesting concept, to have to be brave, and something kind of resonates with me. But the season that I'm in right now, I don't want to show up brave. I want to be soft and vulnerable and authentic and raw in this space. And so I don't want to have to be on I have to defend myself, my honor, my voice, my, and so that's been a journey for me. I mean, as a woman, as a black woman.
I say a black woman.
You
get to be soft.
That's interesting though, because I would see that also as a brave space. Because in order to be soft, you have to take down. You have to have courage to be soft, right? To allow yourself to be vulnerable.
Yes.
Is brave as well. But of course, you didn't start here. You said on this way. Let's
go to this backstory. Because you don't get to wake up and create safe spaces just by opening your eyes. So take us back to the beginning.
Okay, so this is my grandmother raised me.
Okay.
I wasn't raised by either of my parents. My father's mother raised me, and so not having my mother or my father and my grandmother had 9 children. My father being the oldest, and they all grew up as my siblings. Right, I was the little sister, not right because my grandmother was my mother.
Right.
She had a big old house, beautiful, big home, but there was always so much going on, especially when they started having their kids.
Yeah.
And so it was this revolving door, and it was always just so much people's drama and boyfriend and it was a lonely childhood because when all the cousins left, or when all the people were taking care of their children and what they needed, it was just me. And so I was always in this space of listening to my thoughts, sitting with myself. But my grandmother, being a woman of God, was one of the most significant people in my life. She planted seeds early on, and she'd say things that stick, that I still live by and tell my clients. She'd say, "So a man thinketh, so is he." And how she'd tell me how powerful my thoughts of myself. And even when I don't know, well, who am I? And I'm tempted to, form my identity based on who people say I am. She would always say, "Well, who does God say you are?" And so that was significant in
that's a very
grounding.
You don't even know how much of an advantage that is. So for somebody to say, "Hey, remember, as a man thinketh, so is he."
Yeah.
Because I didn't learn that until I was well into 26 years old.
And I'm still trying to learn that. I really am. I really am. I mean, I'm just going to be honest about it because, we talk about, everybody being on their journey. And sometimes when you're successful, you're still on the journey.
You're always on the journey.
And so I always acknowledge that I learned so much from the women that come here in this space and share all of their information. And, of course, I have heard the terms, but just really, I guess, cleaving with that belief.
Yeah.
I'm still working on it.
That's a journey. So it's like, what does that look like? Well, what does that mean?
Yes.
That means that, so it would always be coupled with faith, right? And so no matter what it looks like, I've had to learn that it ain't always what it looks like. And when I'm faced with circumstances, and things that happen, because life is not about what happens to us, it's about how we respond, right? How we show up in that space. When I'm first faced with these circumstances, my mind always says, well, there's a lesson here. There's a reason I'm here, because I serve a God who don't make mistakes.
And now you wouldn't just be having me.
I just wouldn't be here unless there was a reason. So what's the reason? Make it plain. And that is how
Give
I
me
show
clarity.
up. Clarity, Lord.
Yes.
But my thoughts in that space, I've learned, are important, because my thoughts about my situation is then the narrative that I take with me. And that's usually what manifests. Right?
And that narrative creates a function inside, as I say, a feeling inside your heart. And that feeling shows up as functions in your hands. So that narrative is going to be very important, because what I do from that story that I'm telling myself is going to dictate the manifestation.
And I think, and now I will say that I agree on so many levels with that, because the story that you tell, that's why we're here telling these stories, right? The stories that you tell, even to yourself, they dictate how you behave, right?
Yes.
And how you behave affects the outcomes,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So those stories are very important.
Very important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as a kid, your grandmother's planting these seeds,
Planting these
right?
seeds.
Where do those seeds take you?
Oh my goodness. So I lived in the inner city. I lived in the north side with my grandmother.
North
And so-
St.
North
Louis.
St. Louis.
Okay.
North St. Louis, off of Grand, College Hill.
Okay.
And but I was a DSEG baby.
What does
Okay.
that mean?
DSEG, that means that I was bussed out to Parkway,
Okay.
elementary through high school.
Okay.
And then we were in church Sunday, Wednesday, some Saturdays if it was revival. Yeah, I was.
You're right.
You're for 15
Good old
hours.
revival.
So
Yeah.
I
Revival
lived in
happened
these
back
three
then.
different worlds
Yes,
that required
exactly.
a different version of Erica. When I was on 20th Street,
Right.
and I had to look like I wish you would
Right.
Yeah.
at all,
Right.
at all
I'm
times.
so glad you brought this up.
Okay.
Yes.
And when I was in Chesterfield and Parkway and Brownies and Girl Scouts and choir, a different version of Erica came out. And then when I was at church, the spiritual warrior was in that space. The ministry, the anointing was in that space. I was three different people. And I will tell you, can't nobody code switch like a DSEG baby. Okay.
Right. That's serious, because that was part of your survival. Like,
I learned
It
how
is.
to, right? And so that would be kind of the foundation for who I showed up professionally, how I showed up in spaces, what version of me showed up in spaces. And I always felt this disalignment. I always felt like I don't want to have to put on a hat or present a certain version of me in this boardroom, because I'm an intelligent woman. I deserve to be in this space. But I don't want to have to talk like you for you to understand me.
Exactly.
And so that was when I realized I want to get to a place within myself that I feel comfortable presenting all of me.
And
in
every
every room.
space that you
In every room.
And that is a level of success just in life. Period. It's people that will leave this earth and never be able to bring all of themselves together to present in one package. I still struggle with this. I struggle with it so much because I like to be hood.
I was going to say, let's talk about living that, because it sounds great, right?
Yeah.
And I remember it was one point in my life where I was like, I can't do it no more. Like, because I'm from East St. Louis, I got this country twang, right? And I got to go in here, and I'm a trainer, and I got to train these people that don't look like me. And I already walk in the room, and they already think I'm not intelligent to be here. Then I'm going to start talking with this. And then one day I say, I don't care, I got to do it. I can't, like, you literally become to a point where you like, I can't be anybody else but who I am.
But me.
Yes.
So that's the journey to
Exactly.
authenticity.
Right.
That's the journey to actualization. That's the journey that I've been on, and that I take my clients on. But it all starts with what you think about yourself. So this inner connection with who you are, and then you start to appreciate those things about you.
Yes.
And so I see my upbringing.
The
On
20th
North
Street.
St. The 20th Street is
just as great.
me. It's who I am. It's how I've shown up, and it taught me so much about navigating in the world.
And don't you love it? I mean, like, when I think about just black communities and blackness, it is home.
Yeah.
It is.
It
And
is.
I was, because I'm home at the weekend filming these interviews, and I had to run to Walgreens on 25th and State Street, right?
In East St. Louis.
In East St. Louis. And my husband said, you gonna go by yourself? I was like, yeah. Like, I'm just being honest. Like, I've never felt like afraid. Even though I probably at
Yeah.
certain points should have, but
Yeah.
this is home. So I jumped in the car and I went up there and I was like, and I rode through the city a little bit because I hardly ever do that when I'm here. And I'm like, while other people may see ruins, when I ride down these streets, I feel that East St. Louis gave me the foundation of survival, right? And while I'm out in the world, you do got to learn how to survive, right?
You do.
Chicago taught me how to thrive, but I need both, and I am both, right? And I think coming into that, like, I have no shame to ever tell anybody that I'm from East St. Louis, Illinois.
Yeah, I'm quick too. I've been in a lot of rooms throughout my career. So I started at psychology because my she was a Delta too. My high school counselor, beautiful black woman, always poised, and she inspired me because of how she connected with the kids and me, and it was my safe space. You know, getting bused from the city when I got there, I couldn't wait to see her and be in her office. That was my safe space. But the way that she saw us, like
So she was probably a faculty person that they brought in to kind of help.
most likely, but the girl was bad. she was good at what she did.
Exactly.
She was good, but she was my first, like, oh, I could be a counselor. I could do this.
You could do this.
And so I went to school and I started, in psychology, and I'd fall asleep in the classes because it was boring. I was learning a lot about a whole bunch of dead old white men who didn't know nothing about being a black woman and my experience, and that's who I knew I wanted to serve my people. And so I was bored, and so I was like, well, this is boring. Maybe I shouldn't do this. But I do have a cool personality, and I like TV, so I'll be an anchor.
So you got the voice to go with it.
Switched to communications.
Right, you got your BA in mass
I
communication.
switched to communications, graduated. It was like, well, I need some money. And so I went to Enterprise Rent a Car.
Enterprise. Washing cars and
came
suits, right?
in. Well, I came in, and they were like, we have this MIT program, and since you have a degree, I went straight into supervisor manager. I went straight into leadership. 20 years.
Oh. Okay, let's backtrack. Because you were being bused in high school, right?
Yeah.
And then you go off to college,
Yeah.
and this is at SIU, and you're majoring in mass communication, and you graduate.
I graduated. And so it's a story of how it all like comes together, but I graduate and I'm like, well, I don't like journalism because I'm a rebel. I don't like writing. I don't like the style. I'm a creative writer. I want to say what I want to say.
Oh, in the way I want to say
The
it.
way I want to say it. So I was like, that's not for me either.
Yes.
But I like people.
Yeah.
So I went into management and I thrived. I left Enterprise and then I went to Express Scripts.
You was at Enterprise. Did you say 20 years?
No, I was at
leadership.
Enterprise for probably about 3 years.
3 years, okay.
As a manager.
Okay.
Transitioned from there. And I always had little side hustles because I like selling stuff too. So I did like beauty control and like all the little cut cold knives and all that stuff like that. Oh Lord, I did all those things. I still have my scissors, okay, to cut pennies.
Wow.
But I went to Enterprise Rent a Car or to Express Scripts. I spent the bulk of my career there in leadership. But people would ask me, what do you like the most about your job? And it was not the politics of corporate America. I was always the only black woman in the room. Table full of middle-aged, sometimes younger than me, white men. And I was always having to come in there like this, ready. And it was exhausting.
Because you always feel like you have to be playing defense.
Exhausting.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be too 20th Street because then they would get intimidated or offended.
Right.
I couldn't be. It was difficult for me to operate in that space, but I thrived because I loved what I did. I loved my employees. I naturally wanted to see them be the best version of themselves, and so employee development and all that stuff was what I really loved about my career. It wasn't until life really started happening and God started shifting things in my marriage, and within me, that I started feeling uncomfortable The money was good, the benefits was good, you know, it was really nice, you know, working out there, you know, all the amenities. But I was uncomfortable.
Tell us about that. What was uncomfortable? What was it?
Going to work like, oh, I don't want to be here. But why don't I want to be here? Right? It didn't make sense. But that's what God has to do sometimes, because, you know, sometimes He got to push you off the ledge.
Yep.
For you to be like, oh, you want me off the ledge?
Because you're, like you said, you're making good money. You're married, right?
Why would I leave?
Why would you leave?
I was uncomfortable. I started thinking, I don't want to be here. I don't want to go to work. This is weird. And that's when I started feeling like my ministry, I'm not aligned with my ministry. I'm not aligned with my purpose. Because for a long time I was like, well, I'm doing the work. My employees think I'm their counselor. Right. You know, they come in, we talk about your customer service and your matrix, but then we're like, girl, and it's this weekend, you know. Right. But I'm like, am I really doing the work? Am I really in it? So what happened is I believe that spiritually, emotionally, in every way, I outgrew the environment.
Gotcha.
And it was time for
and it wasn't going to bring anything more forth in you.
Nothing else.
Because we're supposed to be in spaces where we're growing, right? And there was nothing else to get it from.
Nothing else in that space. So I went back to school to study marriage family therapy.
Which seems like an easy decision, but that couldn't have been an easy decision. Because how old are you now? Going back to school?
I was grown.
We'll leave it at grown.
I was grown.
You're about to go back. How do you go to your
kids in at that point?
You gotta go to your husband and your children and say, I'm about to go back to school.
Yes, it was a difficult decision, but one that I needed to make for me, and one that I knew eventually I was going to have to do anyway, because I started there. Right, I started in psychology. I knew that I was going to be a counselor, and then life, you know. And so, the interesting part about me making a decision to go back to school to study marriage family therapy, and not IO psychology, because I'm in corporate America. Why not? That just makes sense to study IO, right? Right. And not, you know, LPC. But all these other, like social work and all these things, marriage family therapy was important to me. The reason I chose that field is because I've always had a systemic lens. I've always understood that I am not in this life, in this experience by myself, even though I've been very lonely most of my life. I know that how I show up in the world is not just for me. We're interconnected. Yes. And so the study of systems and how we operate within one another, within relationship with one another, was always so fascinating to me. Not just, you know, helping people with their marriages and their families and all that stuff, but I made that decision, and when I made that decision, my marriage started to fall apart.
I was just okay. Let's see. Yeah. Why do you think that happens?
Well, you know, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to try to keep it real brief.
Yeah.
But I think that when I went back to school, and the closer I got aligned with who I am, the more insight I got into what I had created that was out of line. Right? The more insight I got
this life
into,
that you had created.
What is this? This is out of order.
You created it out of ignorance, though.
Ignorance,
right?
Ignorance, and this I think just this falseness. The sense of like, this is how it should be.
This is how it should look. This is how I want to show up.
That thing. And I think the closer I got to being real and being raw and calling things what they were.
Now, how do you, because this is deep. We know people still in marriages that they know been horrible from the conception. Right?
Listen.
Now, you about to go out in the marketplace and help people in family and marriage, and you ain't got no marriage no more.
Listen here.
How does that work?
Listen here. I tell a funny story about that. So,
is that messing with you going a little bit?
Not at all. But I will tell you why.
Great.
It was, God is so intentional. He has to bring us to places and experiences for us to be able to combat things like that, right? Okay. And so during my clinical, we had to do residencies. And I had to do my residencies in different states. And so my first residency, I had just filed for divorce. And as part of the residency, in order to pass it, you have to role play. You have to be a therapist and then be a client for your peer.
No, that's when I dropped out.
Yeah.
But I had to
Okay. Well, I just filed for divorce, and because God was showing me things that had been just out of order and toxic from the beginning. I met my ex-husband when I was 18. I was just a kid. But those things that I was seeing right now, I was like, oh wow, that's been there for a long time. You know, and I just kind of put some sugar on it or whatever. And so I'm in this space. All my peers, my professors, we're role playing, and what they do is they give us these cards. And so I'd have to be a therapist, and I was okay being a therapist. I was good. I was good on this side of the table, baby. I was letting her have it. It was good. I'm supposed to be doing this.
I got practice from it.
It was time for me to be the client, and I was reading the little cues to tell me who I was supposed to be, right? And it was a woman who was in an abusive relationship, and she was with a narcissist. And I had to embody this role. And y'all, when I say I could not, I was crying. And my peers were like, well, she's a good actress. Baby!
This is my life. This is your life.
I was like, it was like, wow. I am in this space to learn how to be able to be present for others. And I have not taken a moment to be present with myself. These are, one day, these will be my clients.
Yes.
And I have to be able to help them navigate through these emotions, but not just to talk to them, to make space for them, to be able to experience it, how they experience it, and what God, I had to excuse myself, get myself together, and come back to the table. But it was an opportunity for me to be raw in that space for the first time about what I was experiencing, and no one had a clue. They were like, oh my God, you're so da-da-da, but I was like, you know, I've been that way my whole life. Nobody at school knew my lights were off. I would go to show choir and sing my little heart out. Nobody knew that I ain't had no food at home. Nobody knew. You know,
were really good with putting on
doing that thing. And that was God telling me that your life experiences are who makes you the therapist that you're going to be. You're going to be able to relate to these women and these men. You're going to be able to empathize, right? Stay neutral as a therapist, right? But you're also going to be able to have insight that otherwise you would not have had you not had the experience.
Oh wow.
So no, it doesn't bother me. I actually see it counted as a blessing and an honor.
Wow. I had a similar experience because I went back for my second master's because I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And school was safe, what you say. I knew school, right? And my whole life outside was like falling apart or never even was coming together. I don't know, one part or the other. And I was in a therapist program, and we had to get and do role plays. And one of them we had to do is we had to, the instructor said you have to have a strong sense of identity in order to sit with other people. Is this, this part of being therapist, right? And we had to write a paper about who am I, right? And I was at home writing a paper after that, wrote the paper, and now I just said, I don't know who I am. When I got back to the class doing like the role play, I went out and started crying. And I don't know if I called my mom, but I was like, I'm dropping out today. This ain't it. Like, and I went on this journey trying to figure out who am I? I was like, and I'm even getting teary thinking about it because when I was writing that paper, I was like, I can tell you that I come from a mother with this. I come from East St. Louis with that. I got master's degrees and bachelor's degrees, but none of those things felt like I was answering the question of who am I? And I knew that role wasn't for me to become a therapist, but that I needed to be in that class to ask myself that question, who am I? Which is a very raw question.
Interesting.
Because it makes you consider who you are at your core.
At your core, like what the world says you are, or the letters behind your name with all these degrees. So I actually thank God for that moment. It looked like my whole life was falling apart. And I think that where things were just starting to take off. So that was I understand that position.
Sometimes I think that you find the clarity in those moments. Like when everything is falling apart, it's because it's supposed to fall apart. So you can start building.
Because you've really been living an illusion.
Yeah.
To who you think you are.
Until you get to the point of, oh, that's right. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what, prior to my parents meeting each other, this is what was written for Erica to be, right? Not all the things that I think I should be. You know, we operate in shoulds a whole bunch.
Should, right? A lot of shoulds. I know. I should be here because I'm this, and I should be that. Yeah. So, you're sitting in class, your divorce is happening, but you're getting your degree. What happens after that? The divorce is final, you graduate, what's going on?
Yeah, so the divorce was a death. It was a death of what I had romanticized about, the potential I was married to. I was married to the potential of what we would be. Yeah. So I had to grieve that. Right. During my grief, as time would have it, I was in clinicals. I was sitting before people. I was doing the work and pouring out, and being present. And I had to learn how to be present with myself. And so during that time, and I'm a serial entrepreneur, so even when I was working full time in corporate America, I also had businesses on the side. I've always done that. Always had businesses on the side. And so I opened up I'll backtrack a little bit and bring it back up. But I operate by vision. If God will show me, if he shows me anything in my vision, it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
You can't tell me this not going to happen. So I bought this 3-story brick home in the West End. I was so proud of my little self in the first house. And I was like, ooh, this is going to be a project. It's going to be great. I was excited. And I was coming down my steps, and I'd been there for about maybe 4 or 5 months, and I didn't have any furniture in the living room or the dining room. It was just this open space. It had these pretty pocket doors. It was just amazing. But I was coming down my steps, and I looked over. It's only me in the house, y'all. Only me in the house. And I looked over in the living room, as I would always do, just admire in the foyer and stuff like that. And it was full of people. And I was like, say what now? And I saw adults, I saw little kids in the spirit. In the spirit. And I saw mirrors. And I was like, say what, Lord? Okay, make this make sense. Why are there people in my living room?
Why are all these people in my house?
But I saw myself having a parent meeting about these kids in my living room. And God dealt with me. So I've danced my entire life. I've been a dancer my whole life. I started in lyrical and then ventured into liturgical and jazz and modern and all those things. So I opened a dance studio. Let's speed it up. I opened a dance studio in my living room. Called my friend. And I was like,
that was the mirrors.
She's a dancer, and I was like, so God gave me a vision, and this is what we're going to do. And she was like, bet, when we start? And I was like, Saturday. So we did some flyers.
Saturday.
Yes.
What day is it?
I'm not kidding. I was on Craigslist, and these people on the south side were selling these big old mirrors, and when God gives it to you, he provision, honey. And so they were like, sure, you can have $50. I was like, $50?
For the mirrors?
Had my uncles go pick up these big old mirrors. They mounted them. Yo, I took the rail going down my basement steps. There was this rail. I never even went in the basement because I didn't like it. So I took the rail off of there and I made a bar.
Oh my God.
Transformed my living room into a studio. That was the birth of Praise Break Studio. I taught liturgical dance.
What is
and
that?
Lyrical.
What is that?
So liturgical is like praise dance. It's expressive dance, spiritual expressive dance. And then I incorporated lyrical and jazz and all that stuff. But that became my safe haven. So during my divorce, that's where my worship and my praise and pouring into those babies, and that became my safe haven. So while I was grieving, to bring you back up, while I was grieving, that's how I was able to express myself, and I found this love of this connection between movement, healing and movement, and therapy. And because I was a dancer and I naturally expressed myself with movement, and now I had this education, and I was like, this is how I'm going to show up in the world. I married the two, and so I started studying somatic movement.
Wow.
And so that is what actually really saved me. Meditation, prayer, of course, and worship and prayer, but incorporating meditation, being able to ground myself, and learn what emotional intelligence looked like, right? Not being so, reactive to external things, but going inward and learning how to respond appropriately and not take things personal. All that self-talk, honey. I had to do all of that, but I had to do that in a space that was safe for me.
Yeah.
And that studio ended up being my safe space. So even when COVID hit, I had to close the studio because of COVID, but it was so pivotal. It was just so perfectly how God aligned everything. So it brings me through graduation and all that stuff, and I had an opportunity. I knew I was going to have to transition out of corporate America.
So you're still in corporate America all this time?
I was still at Express
so let me
Scripts.
get this straight.
Yep.
You're in corporate America. You're going through a divorce. You are also getting your master's degree, and you have a studio.
I have a studio.
Oh,
Actually, I had two businesses at the time.
Okay.
I had Heart Community Court I launched, and it was a social service business, and I went to get funding. And the woman that I went to get funding or do my pitch, she was like, "Come back to me when you get money. When you got money." I was like, "Well, lady, that's why I'm here."
That's why I need money.
Yeah, I need money so I can do this thing. But I think as an entrepreneur, as a businesswoman, I was like, bet. So I was like, fine. I don't have the money for brick and mortar, so I will do the services how I can do the services. But then, so what I started doing was going to churches and schools and marketing, and I got a contract with KIPP.
Yes.
Elementary and middle school.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And I did their after school programming.
Okay.
And so I had employees, and I was doing a thing. I don't know. Do not ask
say
me.
how.
Do not ask me. To this day, I don't know how I ran that after school. I would leave Express Scripts. I'd run to the after school program. My classes were for praise break were only on Saturdays.
Okay.
So I rehearsed and at the kids, and I was.
And where are you finding time to be a mom? I need to know because I
between every other breath, like
children.
I have 3 daughters.
3 daughters.
I have
Okay.
three
Awesome.
daughters, and so I don't really know, but I will tell you after the divorce, because it was around the time, so then you had COVID, and I had to shut the businesses down. But prior to shutting the businesses down, I did not allow myself to be present with myself during that divorce because I was grieving, so it was overwhelming. I worked.
Yeah, you were hiding in the work.
I went straight to, I had like 20 jobs, but I knew that I had to transition out of corporate America, so I took a position in social services at Covenant House, Missouri.
Okay.
And I started working with the homeless youth population. And I was like, this is it.
Now
I got to get out of here.
I'm going to ask you something. As a counselor and someone who you said you were grieving this death of a marriage, right? And you chose work to kind of get you through.
Yeah.
So now, was that helpful to you, or was there a reckoning point that you came to?
Reckoning like a truck. Reckoning like it hit me at the end. That I went hard for that year. I moved me and my daughters out of our house we had purchased in the West End, and I moved right across to Skinker-Devala, this really cute apartment. It was way too expensive, but it was safe and it was warm and it was what we needed in that season. And I kept that house, but I was like, why am I keeping this house? But it was like, I just don't know what life is going to bring right now. So, like one of those things, but I knew I couldn't be in it. But yes, I worked, one, because I didn't want to sit still enough to deal. Even being a therapist, and that's me being raw, right? And then I worked because I still had that house and that apartment I had and 3 kids,
and the bed, right?
And so the bills were still right. So I'm set up. Let's keep working. But I crashed at the end of that year. Oh, it took a toll on me, my body in every way. And so then that's when I started doing somatic and studying somatic and healing.
And what is the somatic?
So somatic, soma, the root word soma is back to the body. It's everything that happens inside of your body. And so 80% of what happens to us is stored in our body, in our muscles.
Because I hear a lot of people that are dealing with diseases because it was in the mind first and then it went into the body.
Yeah, so it manifests in our body. So you could be dealing with something and ignoring it and be like, my neck keep, or why does I keep it? Right, okay. Trauma is the same way. And so what you'll notice is, say you're in a car accident, and it could have been 10 years ago. But if you ever get on a ramp and it reminds you of that experience, if anything gets close to you, you
tense up.
What you tensing up for? That happened 10 years ago. Your body remembers. The body keeps score of trauma. And so somatic movement is about releasing that trauma, identifying it, and bringing awareness inward. And so we do these body scans, because very rarely, like I ask people all the time, are you breathing? And they be like, girl, of course I'm breathing. Are you really?
No, you're holding your breath sometimes.
Are you really?
I do. I hold my breath all the time. I can catch myself.
I learned that when I used to be on the track team, and my coach used to always say, you gotta breathe. I would be like not breathing, and it's so crazy. I was like, I'm breathing, but then I'll catch myself like, no, I was not breathing.
That's right. How often do we ask ourselves what's happening inward in our bodies? How do my hands feel? But right now they're cold. How do I feel right now? Very rarely do we go inward.
So do you? Because I don't want to claim to know a lot about it, but like at one point I was looking at tapping to release like.
It's a technique.
Yeah, it's a technique.
It's very
like
similar.
Tapping, yeah.
It's very similar. So that's a grounding technique that I use when we're doing like meditation and body scans. So somatic movement is allowing the body to do what it naturally does. It's about the release of this false belief system that we can control, that we should always be in control, right? And so it allows the body to surrender to itself. And that's really what I teach my clients. And there's, of course, techniques and things that we do, but that is core.
So you're combining this with the marriage and family therapy.
Yeah, so through marriage, family therapy, so I do psychotherapy.
Okay.
It's systemic psychotherapy. I'm a clinical director for an agency, and so I have clinicians that report to me, and we do CBT.
You still got that leadership thing,
I
right?
do.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. I had to. As I tell you, I will. So before this job I'm at right now, when I transitioned out of corporate America, I was like, I'm never going back. I'm not doing that. I'm not leading. I'm a therapist. And,
are you taking a pay cut though?
Listen, let me tell you.
Yeah, because
let me tell you.
A pay cut.
So I took the pay cut, and I was like, but God will make a way. I believe He's gonna pay these bills, and I did that, and I got an opportunity. And the way God is set up, after my divorce, stuff was shaken up, and I was like, I have to sell this house. I don't want to be in this house anymore, but this is what I have. During COVID, I'm like, I'm not moving. I'm just gonna stay right here until I figured something out. Well, I got a call when I transitioned, and I was doing Covenant House and all these other little jobs. I was an educator at BFL. But I was doing all this stuff to try to come up with, right? Yeah. And I got a call that someone was looking for me. So I got it, looking for me. They had seen me do the work in the community. I had just got this award for my youth programming. The
Culture and Social Engagement We Care Award.
Yeah. Yep. So this particular person was at that award ceremony.
Okay.
And had saw the work that I was doing. And I got a position, executive director position, without having interviewed.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
And prior to me getting that role, though, God had been dealing with me about, because life was lifing. Like, big time life was lifing. And that's for a whole nother, story, but go on TikTok. Find me on TikTok. I recorded it, y'all.
It's pinned.
What is your TikTok handle?
It's Erica LaShawn in raw form.
Okay.
But I tell all the stories about what happened during that season when God was showing me that I'm getting ready to transition you, right? I'm getting ready to bless you and provide provision for you to transition out of this space, this chapter, so that you can move into the next chapter. So I got this call and got this offer to be an executive director. Now, I said, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be a leader in corporate America no more. But they were like, but we really want you to be able to apply social emotional learnings. And I was like, okay. You're speaking my language.
Right?
All right, Lord, I see the alignment, right?
Yeah.
So I took this position. I was getting paid good money. It offered me the space to be able to transition, right? Me and my daughters into a new space and do all these things. But it was still, after a year, I was like, I started getting uncomfortable. That same feeling that I was feeling. And I was like, Lord, what is this?
Right, because this is good.
This is good.
Yeah.
And I was same thing, the experience all over again. I was like, Lord, what are we doing now? And I was like, this point, I was like, you have not failed me yet. And so I'm going to lean in and trust that wherever you transition me from here is where I'm supposed to be. And that is what he has done. And so now I am a clinical director. And while I am a leader, I'm doing what I do.
You do what you do.
You know, I'm aligned. I'm a therapist in that space. During COVID.
Okay.
So I think it was 20 towards the end of the year.
And I don't want to seem like I'm slow, but I still want to get this somatic movement. And I don't feel like I have the full, you say we do body scans. What does that look like? And then once you do the body scan, exactly what do you do? Are they doing movement?
You said it. That's exactly.
Okay.
You have an understanding of exactly what it is. A body scan is everyone's laying down in a quiet room and you hear meditative music, so you're in a meditative space. And I am literally guiding you through an internal scan of your body. So pay close attention to your head right now. Pay close attention to, is there any tension in your eyes, in your face? Is there any tension in your shoulders? Relax your shoulders.
Definitely is.
Is there any tension in your stomach? Make your stomach soft. And so there is this process to go inward and pay attention to what's happening inside of your body, your cognition.
And okay, you know what? This is so important because with that same group, the Interpsychic group, it's a women's leadership group. It was a young lady who came in, so it was about the meditation, but she did exactly that. It was like she took us through the thing, and I'm telling you, when it was just a few minutes, but I felt so much at ease. I've been trying to get back to that moment. It's been months. I've been trying, like, what was she saying now? Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm glad we went into that a little bit more because I'm telling you.
And then when you start moving, how do I know you just move what feel like needs to be moved?
So I will show you in class, I will instruct you to kind of mimic or mirror, but really is what you feel like doing.
What you feel like.
It's whatever kind of comes out of your body. But I've had somatic experiences that I've released childhood trauma. I've forgiven my father. I've forgiven my mother for leaving me. I have forgiven all that stuff that showed up in my relationships, showed up as in my parenting. All that stuff, it shows up. But I've been able to release it through somatic movement.
You got a new client. I know. I'm always like,
yes.
Because I feel like, I'm not going to lie, I feel like sometimes I hold stuff in my back.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about the back a little bit.
The back and the shoulders.
That's where I hold all
that. That's the first thing that tenses up. Ever trauma. The brain is to keep you safe, right? And so the brain says, oh, there's danger, do something. It'll tell you either fight, to freeze, or to when we freeze, the first thing that is our shoulders and our back, our lower back, right? Those muscles like, ooh, be still. Yeah, and we'll hold it. We'll hold it right there. And so I oftentimes say, make your shoulders soft. Because we could be sitting right here and don't even know.
Like this.
So
sometimes it'll catch me like,
See, I think you just have to keep telling yourself, it's that self-talk. Make your shoulders soft. You're safe. You're safe right here.
Yeah. I can see that. That's good. All right, so this has been amazing. And really, like, what I'm hearing is the more you did the work, the more your journey showed up for you to be able to do the work with other people.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
And I feel like that we've heard it in a lot of ways before, where your story started out. You started it in this space, psychology. But then the way it showed up to you, like you said, it was a bunch of old white men, right? So this is not what I was called to do. And so then you changed, trying to figure out, well, it must be another path. But then you were always on the right path. And just because it didn't look how you thought it might look, you varied.
Absolutely.
Shifted.
And the more you let go of thinking that it needs to look like this way,
Mm-hmm.
the more it showed up in your authenticity and what it
You
needed
got
to
it.
look like.
You got it.
I love that.
I
So-
no longer feel like I have to be in control either.
Mm-hmm.
I think that releasing control is really important.
Yes.
And just because you're good at something doesn't mean you should be doing it.
Yes.
Mm.
You guys hear that?
Just because you're good at
Good at
something doesn't mean that you have to do all the
Oh,
things.
right.
I'm really good in my lane.
Mhm.
I like it.
You like it.
And I think that that's another point to really make too. Like before you just said that the whole thing about you were in your marriage because of what it looked like, right? You got out of what you were supposed to be doing because of what it looked like, and I think that's important for this generation because everything is so visual
Yes.
now,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
So sometimes we have to move past what it looks like
Yep.
and get to what it is, what it
is.
can be,
Mhm.
and really who you are.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if you're ever in a space, whether it be relationship, your job, career, and that's relationship with family and romantic, and it doesn't serve you. You are not the best version of you in that space. I think that before you walk away from that space, you assess self. Is there something that does anything have to do with how I'm showing up?
Yeah. Don't just try to blame it on
You
the
do the
environment.
self-work, right?
Yeah,
And
the
you
person.
utilize the tools, but God will make it real plain when a space, a situation is not serving you. It is not aligned with who He created you to be. And I think once you get to that place, then you do have to take care of you.
You do.
You have to
At the
make
end of
those
the day.
decisions, self-care to take care of you. There's only one you.
There's only one you.
There's only one you. And so I think that is important. Childhood trauma is something that you have to be aware of, to lean in, be willing to be courageous and lean in and deal with those things because they do manifest and
They
they
do.
show up in who you decide to date
Yep.
and
They do.
Yes.
what you justify and
Yeah.
what you try to make pretty. And so like those are all things that I think are paramount to our overall wellness as people.
Yes.
It's interesting that you say that because I have found that oftentimes women end up being a lot like their mothers when their mothers raised them. If you don't contend with those things, and sometimes you will marry your father.
Yeah, that is something I see often because your primary caregivers, they create however you were reared as in your infancy. It creates your attachment style, and I know we've been talking for a while, but that's important. Identifying your attachment style, it really helps you see how you relate to people, how you relate to men, what the expectations you have when you're in the presence, what soft looks like, what masculinity looks like, what femininity looks like.
Yeah.
It's all rooted in your experience when you came out of the womb.
Yes. Yeah.
I love it.
I love it. I love it. A friend just actually, because they know I read a lot, was like, you should read this book called Attached, and it's really about going into like those traumas and I haven't read it yet, but they literally just sent it to me last week, and about your attachment styles and what you're clutching to. Yeah, I think that's interesting. So, Erica, if someone is listening today and want to kind of do the same thing that you're doing, which I think you kind of carved out a space of your own in a way, right? You've taken things from several where it looks very opposite of each other and created this career that you have. What would be 3 or 4 tips you would give them on their journey?
I think the first would be do the self-work. Self-work, right. So what does that look like? That looks like ask yourself, am I doing this for me or for someone else? Am I doing this because I think this is what I should be doing? This is what's going to get me the recognition. This is
Or the paycheck.
or the money, right? That house that I want. Who am I doing this for? Will this be fulfilling, right? Because success, like I said, is defined by not just what you acquire in life, but your impact. Your purpose. So the self-work is important. The healing, doing your own healing, your own journey, before and then also you have to be willing to challenge self-sabotage and intrusive thinking and
Please
thoughts.
say that. Please say
You
that.
have to be
It's so
willing
important.
to challenge those things that tell you that to play small in rooms that
That is
don't
very
have the
true.
capacity to hold you.
Oh.
You've got to be willing to do that work, right? And or else you will become stifled. They will become barriers to you elevating and you being, the best version of yourself in those spaces. So.
Can I say something to that? I know we're bringing this to an end, but I want to say something to that because that is what you just said, those intrusive thoughts, right? That is the biggest obstacle that I encounter. It's funny because we're kind of circling back around. That's the biggest obstacle that I encounter when people say, as you think, so it is, right? Because if that's the case, then what about all those negative thoughts that bombard you constantly?
Intrusive thoughts are birth out of trauma. They tell you the opposite of who God says you are.
I was going to say, I think a lot of it comes from programming too.
And programming.
Right? Like things have, I remember after undergrad cutting off the television because something told me that every time I cut on the TV, as a black woman, it was telling me all the things I wasn't.
Exactly.
Instead of all the things I were. So I was taking their intrusive thoughts, thinking their mind and owning them. Right?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm always going back to my word, is because if I'm made in the image of God, God says I'm all these things. I got to decide which one I'm going to listen to. And I just decide to listen to this one as much as I can.
Yeah.
And when the intrusive ones come from outside of me, I combat them with the word that I know.
That's
that
it.
God says.
So what she said is, I decide to listen. That's what challenge those thoughts looks like. Not that they won't come. Yeah, they're going to come.
They're
but
coming.
you make the decision, the cognitive decision to say, well, why shouldn't I be in this room? Well, why shouldn't I? No, greater is within me than, right? You affirm yourself. You be brave enough to challenge the thoughts.
And see, and I think that's an important part of that conversation of the as you think, so as you, right? Because you will get those negative thoughts that will come in that will say, you're not this, you're not that. But like she said, you got to challenge, like
and you also have to see it. Vision is important. You have to see it. I saw myself in that living room doing that stuff.
I've seen,
and so
stuff
it happened.
You can't. Once I, like you said, once I see it, I know this is happening.
This is it.
Okay, well y'all give me thoughts because I saw myself getting an Oscar.
Okay, come on.
There you go.
I love it.
I saw it. I had little tears in my eyes.
I feel that feeling. Yes,
I love that.
Yes. All right, give us one last one to close out the show. Yes.
Oh, smile a lot.
Smell.
Show up. Remember that life is not about what happens to you. We all have a story.
Yes.
We all have a story.
Yes.
It is about the narrative you tell yourself about that experience.
Okay.
It's about how you navigate through life and be, when you wake up and you open your eyes and you take a deep breath, you must be grateful for that moment. If you live your life grateful for each moment, then you'll want to take care of that moment. You'll want to take care of this life and this vessel. Yeah.
Love it. Well, Erica LaShawn, you are a Black Boss Lady.
And your legacy will live on the Black Boss Ladies Platform podcast.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on the BBL Platform podcast, the place where legacies live. We hope you will join us on our next inspirational journey to success. Be sure to rate, like, and subscribe to our show. For more information, please visit our website at theBBLplatform.com.